Good morning, Patriots and freedom-loving Americans. Welcome back to the finish line. We're going to cover a lot about the Iranian conflict today, but as promised, we begin our Epstein investigation. And I think this Iranian conflict is a distraction technique to get us off of the Epstein files. Like every time that comes up, all of a sudden there's a new thing. I don't think that's a coincidence, but we're not going to let them get off the hook on that one. But we will start with this news since it is pretty important in the world right now. So everybody's talking about the Iranian conflict, anti-Trump, pro-Trump, everyone's giving their 2 cents on it. But I don't think everybody knows the backstory to how our relations have been with Iran over the past 60, 70 years and why we're enemies. Because if you're going to have an opinion on the conflict, you have to understand how these things have played out over time. So that's what I think I'll do before we get into the news, is just kind of give you a quick rundown of why the U.S. and Iran are enemies and why a conflict like this had to happen. So we're going to take it back to 1951. There was a prime minister named Mohammad Mossadegh, and he decided to take the country's oil reserves under sovereign control. So he nationalized them because they'd been controlled by private companies that were benefiting British interests. And so the British made this huge protest. They refused to buy their oil, and they actually took some lawsuits against Iran. And this is right after World War II, so there's this consensus that allies stand together. And the U.S. decided to stand with its allies and not buy oil from Iran, even though Iran had done nothing to the United States. The U.S. started also fearing, Britain was talking in their ear, that these other countries were going to nationalize their oil resources, and the United States wasn't going to get the sweet, sweet oil that they wanted. And so the lack of buyers caused the Iranian oil market to crash. So Iran could no longer sell to these big powers like Britain and the U.S. that they wanted to. And then the U.S. started fearing that the Soviet Union was going to start talking in their ear, and that was going to lead to, some communist control, because the Communist Party in Iran was starting to rise up about these things. And so even though we created the problem, the CIA and British intelligence together overthrew their prime minister and installed a dictator that would be friendly to Western interests called the Shah. And so the Shah oversaw this rapid modernization program, but he was very unpopular with the poor because he was a dictator. He was against Islamic fundamentalism, which a lot of people in that part of the world are for. I mean, those are very religious countries, and he was kidnapping and torturing political opponents, and was getting money from the United States. And I'm not trying to be that person that's saying, the U.S. has always been bad. But if we start the setup of this story, we see that we were the provokers in this beginning of having tensions with Iran. And so Iran struck back in 1979, where they tried to overthrow the government. They were done with the Shah, they were done with the dictatorship, and we took him, this brutal dictator, into the United States for cancer treatment, and we're holding him there, and the people that took over the government wanted him back to try him for his crimes against humanity. And so what happened was a bunch of students overthrew the U.S. embassy in Iran, took 444 students captive, which is absolutely horrible. See, I want to make sure that you guys don't think like, oh, I'm on Iran's side this whole time. I'm just trying to provide a nuanced history of the conflict. And so from here on, America amped up its rhetoric about Iran being bad. We eventually got the hostages. That was a horrible crisis. There's a good movie about it called Argo, if you haven't heard. But this new government that they put in was very, 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 rigid Islam and anti-Israel. And before that, the Shah had been pro-Israel because the West in the U.S. was pro-Israel. And the new government hated Israel because they wanted Muslim domination in the Middle East. And they wanted Israel and the United States out of the Middle East. And this really scared the United States. And there was this war going on between Iran and Iraq. And we started funding Iraq to fight against Iran because we were worried about our oil, of course, since Iran hated us by this point. And this just pissed them off even more. And so Hezbollah, a proxy terrorist group of Iran started funding these horrible terrorist groups, bombed U.S. Marines in Lebanon in 1983, killing 241 American servicemen. So this even amps up the conflict even more. And then in 1988, the U.S. mistakenly shot down an Iranian civilian aircraft, killing 290 innocent civilians. And they continued supporting terrorist groups that were going against Israel. We sanctioned them throughout the 90s for supporting terrorist groups and opposing Israel. And then they started pursuing missile technology and started enriching uranium, which suggested that they were going to develop a nuclear weapon. They started looking into that. And this is really the basis of this conflict, is the idea that Iran cannot develop a nuclear weapon. And there's a couple reasons why. Mainly, it would destabilize the region. There would be this nuclear arms race that we're extremely worried about, and the fact that Iran hates Israel, and the U.S. loves Israel. And there's this tension here. Would Iran use a nuclear weapon to destroy Israel? So it all came to a head in 2015 in the Obama White House. There was something called the Iran nuclear deal. And Obama said, hey, look, you can't have a nuclear weapon. We don't want you threatening Israel. We're going to limit your uranium enrichment. We're going to you're going to have to be inspected a lot to make sure that you're not making a nuclear weapon, but we're going to lift your sanctions. So you're not going to, and frozen assets. We're going to let the money flow back into the country so you guys can be prosperous. I'm not pro-Obama, but at all, but that was a fantastic deal in my opinion, because it made sure that Iran would not develop this nuclear weapon. Now I'll get into why I'm not worried about Iran getting a nuclear weapon, but let me just finish the history here. So Trump came into office, and Trump has this very hardline approach, which I think is good some of the time, but he did not like the Iran nuclear deal because there were sunset clauses. It was going to expire, and Iran still was funding terrorist groups that were attacking Israel. And Trump said this isn't hard line enough. They could still develop missiles. They can still threaten Israel. So he pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal in 2018. And so this made Iran angry. And they just said, you know what? We're going to just keep enriching uranium for a nuclear weapon. And then we put sanctions back on them. And the tensions racked up again. And in 2020... we killed their beloved General Soleimani, who was an influential figure who was kind of managing their proxy terrorist groups and was coordinating these attacks that were going on U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria. And so Trump ramped up the war, and so did Biden when he came back. There were more proxy confrontations, more U.S. strikes. And when Trump came back into office, again in 2025, the tensions continued to go higher. And we did a giant strike on their nuclear program, their uranium enrichment, which set their program back by months. And Iran was very close to have the technical capacity to produce weapons-grade uranium than in earlier years. And so now we're at war again, and the question is why. So I gave you this backstory and this history, and you can see that Iran is obviously an awful country. these fundamentalist Islamic regimes are usually brutal. They're interested in terrorism. These aren't good, morally upright nations. However, the U.S. did provoke the conflict with these nations. And guys, I'm going to say this, but the fundamental conflict here is our support for Israel. And this is causing all of these problems from the beginning. And, we go back to 1948 even. The reason that we supported Israel was humanitarian concerns after the Holocaust and the idea that this was going to be a democracy in the Middle East that could counterbalance the Soviet Union. But I think there are more cons to our relationship with Israel than there are pros, because it gives us all these enemies that we didn't have before, which is the fundamentalist Muslim world. I think the fundamentalist Muslim world is bad. I don't want them over here, but they weren't our enemies before we started supporting Israel. The reason they chant death to America in Iranian parliament is because of America's support for Israel. The reason they send proxy terrorist groups against U.S. forces is because they want us out of the Middle East. And I understand there's a humanitarian concern that they're going to destroy Israel and do horrible things like Hamas did on October 7th. But the U.S. is not the world police. There are Christians getting slaughtered in North Korea. There are Christians getting slaughtered in South Africa. Think about it. We didn't get involved in Stalin's brutal regime that killed millions of people, and neither Mao's, because the U.S. is only responsible for its own interests. I wish everybody well. I hate violence. I don't want to see people killed or slaughtered or tortured. But it's not in my control. It's not in my country's interest to get involved every time something goes wrong in some other part of the world. We are not God. We are a nation of people that is responsible for themselves and themselves only. And so I get it that they'll give you more reasons for support for Israel now, is that their enemies are our enemies, threat to Israel, all this stuff. But again, their enemies are our enemies because we decided that they were our enemies, because we aligned ourselves with the state of Israel. And I don't think that if Iran got a nuclear weapon, there's no sign that they actually want to get a nuclear weapon. I think they want the capability to have one. They're enriching uranium to learn how it's done and to threaten other people in the Middle East as the big conflict. And Benjamin Netanyahu wants to destroy Iran so they can have regional hegemony. And I understand that. I mean, they're acting in their own interests, as Tucker Carlson would say. But we have to act in our own interests. And I don't think a nuclear Iran is even a threat to the United States. Yes, they've chanted death to America, but if we pulled out of Israel, they would have no reason to be against us. Soviet Union chanted death to America all the time. They said they were going to blow us to smithereens. They had nuclear weapons and we didn't do anything about it because it wouldn't be rational. Iran would never attack the United States with a nuclear weapon because they would be obliterated. They would never attack Israel either because Israel has nuclear weapons, and Iran would be obliterated. It would be completely out of their own interest. They want the bomb to threaten. They're full of hot air. And the problem with Trump's posture on this is it's aggressive and it's getting us into fights that we don't need to be in. And this war is ramping up. We were promised, Trump said in 2011, we weren't going to go to war in Iran. There's a video of it. Charlie Kirk warned us about this, for God's sakes. It's just crazy. Tulsi Gabbard was putting out shirts. You know who she is. She's the National Director of Intelligence, who was a Democrat that became a Republican in this last election cycle. She was selling shirts that said no war in Iran, vote for Trump. This is ridiculous. We've had 6 casualties already in a war for Israel that has nothing to do with the interests of the United States. And so the next thing is that Congress is finally starting to wake up. If you read the Constitution, Congress has the power to declare war because it's a big body of people war is a very delicate topic. Losing people, losing lives, losing American lives, that requires discussion, debate, from democratically elected officials by the people. This is an important thing. And all of a sudden, over time, Congress gave up its power to declare war, gave it to the president. That's why we had these bullshit forever wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, is because the president thought that he could send in troops anywhere on his own whim. And I think that Trump has been the best at it so far, preventing these forever conflicts. I mean, Venezuela was overnight. We did those Iran strikes in June, both of which I disagreed with, but they were quick. But what happens when the next guy gets in there? If you give one man the power to control the entire army to do these conflicts, that's crazy. He can do anything based on his own whim. These wars require debate, so there's a bipartisan effort to give the constitutional power to declare war back to Congress where it belongs. The Democrats are getting involved. I feel like the Democrats aren't principled at all. Like, they're helping some Republicans get the power back to Congress, but just because they're anti-Trump. If it was Obama that was sending troops into Iran, they'd love it. So, yeah, no, but this is a principled thing. I think it's important that we get these powers back to Congress. And part of this vote and this idea is driven by that the White House had said this was a preemptive strike, that Israel was already going to strike Iran, and the U.S. claims it got involved to prevent attacks on U.S. forces. But the Pentagon, in closed-door briefings, said that U.S. intelligence did not show Iran was planning a preemptive attack on U.S. forces. So this seems like the administration lied again. And I don't like doing this. I don't like going against the Trump administration. I love Trump. You know, I supported him 3 times. But we're getting caught up in all these lies, and it's harmful to our party, and it's harmful to our beliefs. He's being reckless right now, and it's really an embarrassment to someone that supported him and has these principles, because it makes the rest of us look crazy. Markets also plunged today because of there's an oil crisis going on. There's Iran's production of over 3 million barrels of oil per day that helps us is now considered at risk because of retaliatory strikes. There's also been a choke point which 20% of the world's oil goes through that has been closed because of the war. There's been infrastructure attacks, and we're losing a lot of oil that we could be having from Iran because of this war. And it's plunging prices up. So this war is good in no way. We do not need heightened tensions in the U.S. Let's pull the troops out. Let's stop supporting Israel, and let's focus on what Trump ran on, which was affordability, bringing these costs down. But that will conclude our news segment for the day. All right, this is what you've all been waiting for so long. We're talking about him, the man, the myth, the legend, Jeffrey Epstein, the Epster. Are we ready? I'm ready. So we're just going to give an introduction. I like to do these things slow in segments. We could take 3, 4, 5 months. I mean, it's Jeffrey Epstein we're talking about. Yeah, there's so much information. He's so important. All right. So we'll start. It was a cold winter day in Brooklyn, January 20th, 1953. He was born in a working class Jewish family. His mother was a homemaker, just an average woman. His father worked for the New York City Parks Department. He had a modest upbringing, didn't come from money, so there was nothing suspect about him. He had no ties to anyone. Usually these elite criminals come from money, an elite network, and Epstein just comes out of nowhere. You'd think it would be a normal family. His parents were quiet and humble. His mother was very respected. As a kid, his friends said he was sweet and nerdy. And he attended public schools. He wasn't, some rich kid. and he earned money tutoring classmates because he was a very smart boy. And he he graduated Lafayette High School at only 16 years old. He skipped 2 grades because he was so smart, and then he attended Cooper Union advanced math classes before changing colleges 2 years in. We don't know why he changed colleges. Cooper Union is known for being extremely rigorous and engineering focused with a high rate of dropping out. And it's been speculated that he wasn't doing great in school because we know from people that his intellect was more in abstract math rather than in engineering. And so he transferred to a school called Courant in 1971, which was more this theoretical math and more flexible. It was more outside of the box thinking, which we know Epstein was very good at. And so at the end of his junior year in college, he once again dropped out. And which seems very weird if you were on this trajectory, but we know why he dropped out. And it was because he was hired to be a physics and math teacher for teenagers at one of the most elite preparatory schools in New York City by a fellow named Donald Barr. So this is the first point in the story, and when I'm researching something, when there's something that doesn't add up, I tend to pull back and investigate. When there's something that doesn't make sense, I don't just skip over it. Because the easiest explanation tends to be the correct one. And that seems very weird to me that something like that would happen. A man without any teaching credentials, a college dropout, is hired to be a teacher at an elite preparatory school by this elite guy named Donald Barr, who we'll talk about. And this is why we can't continue this story any longer without figuring out what the hell happened here. This school has served elite families, children of Wall Street executives, business owners, professionals, prominent cultural figures. This working class kid, really? Well, so I thought it would be important to dive into this fella named Donald Barr. And he was also born in a Jewish family. Jew. And no, guys, I'm not trying to like, it's the Jews or something like that. I want to establish these things to show Epstein's close network with Israel, because this is going to be important later in the story. And these are the roots of that. So I'm not trying to push this racist narrative or something. I was just doing the Alex Jones thing to kind of make fun of it. And he does have really deep ties to Israel, and this is kind of where it starts. So this Donald Barr guy, anyway, son of psychologist father, economist mother, he graduated from Columbia College in 1941, degree in mathematics and anthropology, before joining the Office of Strategic Services. So it was a civilian intelligence agency for the U.S. government. It was a predecessor to the CIA. And they were founded in 1942 during the beginning of World War II to conduct intelligence behind enemy lines, conduct espionage, sabotage, and subversive operations in access-controlled areas, and analyze political, economic, and military info. So basically the World War II version of the CIA. And they recruited people with unusual skills, such as academics, linguists, anthropologists, and people that were really good at math. Similar to people like Epstein, who were really good at this kind of abstract thinking. But this is Donald Barr we're talking about still. So Barr gets these deep ties to intelligence agencies in the U.S., and he continues being successful in the U.S. government and respected. His son actually joins the CIA early in the 1970s, around the time that this Epstein story begins. So the puzzling question is, how did he and Epstein cross paths? And the conventional explanation is people say, Donald Barr made some unusual hiring choices when he became the head of this preparatory school. He hired people without degrees because he found people that were interesting and abstract smart and outside of the box thinkers. An Epstein classmate, though, called him very bright but lazy and more interested in socializing than completing coursework. Another said he never finished any of his programs, but he could talk about them really well. We could believe that Donald Barr just hired this guy, fly on the wall, but there's just too many questions. And can you pause? So there's another piece to this puzzle. And interestingly, Donald Barr wrote a book the year before he hired Epstein that might tell us a few little interesting things. So the book tells of two planets. There's Earth for average people, and then there's this planet called Kosar, which is full of the rich and powerful elite. And these two worlds are really disconnected. They don't have that much connection between each other, and they're very far. And so there's this liberal Earthman named John Craig, who is a diplomat between these two planets. And he's abducted by those on the planet Kosar to work for him. And he figures out on this planet, it's this ruling oligarchy that is super depraved. It's the elitist and most powerful people that are on this planet Kosar. And they use blackmail and get people to work for their purposes through sex with underage girls. So John Craig becomes part of this sex ring where they're raping underage girls. And he ends up becoming a slave to a rich socialite named Lady Morgan Sidney, who he ends up marrying. That is a extremely weird novel to write. There's an interesting conclusion to that. But this man, who is supposedly upright in the government, like everyone was respected, writes this weird science fiction novel about underage sex. And the ties to Epstein are very interesting. Epstein was part of this blackmailing ring. We know he blackmailed people through sex. We don't know why. They don't really want to tell us why. And he also married a rich socialite woman. They actually describe her in the book the same way as his eventual girlfriend and partner, Ghislaine Maxwell. So there's these ties between Lady Morgan Sidney and Ghislaine Maxwell. And the rare earth mineral that they mine on this planet is called Weinsteinite, which immediately brings me to the concert producer and later convicted sex offender director Harvey Weinstein. So just very, very, very weird. I'm trying to fill in these pieces, and this is just me, my brain goes to some crazy places. But this book to me almost seems like a blueprint for a massive intelligence operation. And here's why. So it just happened to be around this time, in the early 1970s, where a lot of info was starting to be leaked about illegal activities that the CIA had been involved in. So the year this book was drafted was 1973, the year before Epstein was hired at the Dalton School by this man in 74. And it was the year that there was a 700-page disclosure of internal reports was commissioned by this CIA director that wanted to clean house named James Schlesinger. And there was this list of grievances that was compiled. He said, he was worried because he was like, I think the CIA has been doing illegal activities for too long. I want you to make a list of these things that the CIA has done wrong, because the public, all this information was starting to leak out, and this director wanted to retain control and figure out exactly what the hell they were up to. So they called this release the Family Jewels, because it's all the secrets of the CIA. Yeah, Mason, pull up that document. So the Family Jewels, let's see, there's a big list here. It eventually was declassified in 2007, finally, after years, because when James Schlesinger, the director of the CIA, saw what they had been up to, he put it in this vault because it was so horrible, some of these things. Like, look, Johnny Roselli, the use of a member of the mafia in an attempt to assassinate Fidel Castro. Project Mockingbird, phone taps. There is a mind experiments, all sorts of human experimentation in here if you go through this list. But if you look, the number one family jewel is redacted, and we still don't know what it is. This offense by the CIA is so atrocious that they have chosen to still redact it. So there's been a lot of speculation about what this could be. Aliens? Is it about how the CIA assassinated JFK? Well, actually, we have an idea, and the CIA might have outed themselves on this one. So the JFK files, there was a dump of JFK files a couple years ago, and we found in it about this tale of this guy named Robert Mayhew, who's an American businessman and lawyer who worked for the FBI and CIA, talks about how he procured female companionship for the president of Indonesia who was visiting. This was in the late 1950s. And what's interesting is it says, see tab 1 in the family jewels. Tab 1 is redacted. The president of Indonesia had been in trouble with the US because he was installing communists into his government, and he was withholding natural resources from the US. And the JFK files that came out show that Russia and the US attempted to sexually blackmail him. Russia, we know, the KGB, their intelligence agency, set him up with hookers and filmed this video and put it out in his country to publicly embarrass him and get him out of power. But Indonesia does not have the same standards as we do, and they thought he was cool for that, and he became much more popular, so this completely failed. But these JFK files say that the CIA was working to give girls to traffic girls to this president of Indonesia. Now, it doesn't say underage girls, but it says C in tab 1, and this tab 1 has been redacted. And the redactions in the family jewels list were explained away by saying that it might have been important to a relevant investigation that the government was doing at the time. Now, when these were put out was 2007, during the period when Epstein was first being investigated by the government. And this number one worst offense looks like it was probably that the intelligence agencies were involved in sex trafficking. And so now everything is kind of coming together. This Epstein was approached by Donald Barr, who still had ties to the CIA, to be involved in a sex trafficking blackmail operation. This book is a hint or blueprint of what the operation was, but it was written in a way that it wouldn't expose the truth of it because the CIA did not want to have this on their record. All the facts that I told you were true, but I'm speculating, kind of tying these things together. And the fact that there was this book written the year before, this guy in the CIA hires Epstein seemingly out of nowhere, the fact that these family jewels revelations came out the same year, seems that if you put these things all together, that the CIA was looking to continue its operations in secret. And the perfect way to do that would be to approach and take captive, in a way, a very smart, intelligent man that could be trained to run a sexual blackmailing ring. And what Jeffrey Epstein, we know, did, and they still haven't explained why, is that he took these powerful figures, trafficked underage girls, and used it for blackmail. And now I think that this was on behalf of the CIA to get what they wanted out of powerful figures. And so there's a lot more evidence of that. I'm just giving you a taste now, but we'll pick this up tomorrow. All right, you know the drill. It is Tier List Tuesday. We're keeping the same format that I did on America Only. Tier List Tuesdays, we'll do the top 10 on Wednesdays. BuzzFeed quizzes on Thursdays. I'm not going to do Friday shows now because of my schedule, and then interviews on Saturdays. But I was trying to think of a good tier list topic, something short, because this episode is really long. So I decided on doing the months of the year. And from now on, I'll be doing polls. I'll be asking you, the audience, on Instagram what you think I should do for tier lists. So let me pull this up here. All right. S tier months. There are only 3 S tier months, okay? There are only 3. This is non-negotiable. July, October, and December. July has 4th of July. It's patriotic. It's hot outside, 110 degrees every day. That's how I want it. October just feels American for some reason. It's just American. Fall, it starts getting colder. It starts getting darker earlier. I don't know. It's just such a vibe. The leaves changing is like really cool. It's just a beautiful time of year. October, peak fall, peak awesomeness, and obviously December, Christmas, snow, the first snow. It's just a magical time. The music is great. The movies, everybody, comes together. It's just a very special month. So yeah, July S tier, October, December. Those are the only 3 S tier months. And if you do disagree with me, then you're stupid and gay, and I don't even care. Okay, let's see. We'll go back. I don't know how. I think we'll just start with January from then on, because I don't know exactly where to put these categories. January, there's nothing that really happens. There's Martin Luther King Day in there, but it's winter, snow, so it's kind of fun, when you get a snow day. It's my birthday month, so I'm gonna give it. It's just, I don't know though. There's something kind of boring about it. I'll give it a B tier. January goes in the B. It's all right. It's okay. It's whatever. February, again, winter. Nothing really special. I don't really care about the Super Bowl, so it's not horrible though. How can you say a month is horrible? I don't really think there is a horrible month. Valentine's Day. Oh my God, it was so annoying this year. I wasn't getting my usual dumb reels. I had to get all these fucking Valentine's reels. This like Bryce Crawford reels with his wife kept coming up, and I don't know. I like the guy, but he looks like a total idiot when he's talking to his wife. And hey, this might be controversial, but I don't know. I just want to spend the rest of my life with you. And like the crying, I just can't. I don't think that's how God wants men to act. That's like he's totally just making himself look like a fool to the entire world. I don't know. And his wife, see, I don't want to attack them. Everyone's focusing on Erica Kirk being fake. I think Maddie Crawford seems a million times faker. I shouldn't be saying that. She's probably a sweetheart and the nicest person in the world, but she's like always doing the same face. She's always like dressing up, look at me, all this stuff. Seems very attention seeking. You know the face I'm talking about that she makes. It's like this face that's like, I'm the prettiest, I'm the best, I'm the most amazing. Watch one of her reels. You know what I'm talking about. And okay, we're getting off track here. I'm sorry, but yeah, that was annoying this year. Yeah, don't give me Valentine's Day reels. Give me my usual stuff. I'll put it in the B tier. Also, whatever, average. Okay, March. We're in March. Kind of sucks. It's that like transition month. It's early spring and it can be wet and muddy and slushy and gross. So there's nothing to do in March. It's like the longest period of school. I'm going to give it an F, actually. Yeah, screw March. No one likes March. Yeah. April. April. Oh, it has Easter. It starts getting warm. It can be windy though. I hate wind. Uh, B. I'm being generous because I don't think there's going to be any other like F tier or D tier months. To be honest, I don't think that any of them are like that bad because there's always something. Um, May, A tier, just because of memories. Like think about May. Like as a kid, it was like that ramp up period before summer, and it's like finally warm outside, and the sun goes down at 9 o'clock at night, and like everyone's getting pumped up. May is like the hype month. It's the hype month of the year, and it's pretty fantastic. It's not on the level of July or October or December, just because it doesn't have like a holiday that like strings everything together. But it's a solid month on its own merit. I give it an A completely. June. June should get an A also. I'd give it a B. Nothing really happens in June, but it's summer. We love summer. Pool parties, whatnot. You can hang out outside. Any month that's like that, completely an A. Yeah, 100%. Um, I'll give August an A too. It's the end of summer. That's when I usually take a vacation, family vacation somewhere. Love going into the mountains. Yeah, August A. Solid month. I know the expectation that school's coming back kind of sucks, but no, I think it's altogether solid. September is it's so average. I feel like September is the most average month of the year. Nothing happens. You're just kind of waiting for October. It's just you're waiting for October. So for that, it gets a C. It's whatever. And I guess November's our last one. Has Thanksgiving at the end, which is awesome. But it's kind of the beginning of it is just like wet and cold and nothing's going on. You're just like anticipating winter, but it's not there yet. C, C. I might change this ranking later, but I think March is the only F tier, and yeah, I think that's a pretty solid. I think that's a pretty solid list. Comment if you disagree, and yeah, that was a very short tier list. So again, I'm gonna ask for comments on Instagram for what my next tier list should be. But thank you for watching. We'll be back with the finish line tomorrow.